We are live. Live to the world. Well, not quite. We're recording, and we'll go live to the world later. Thank you for being here. I'm actually super excited about this one. I was really sad, though, yesterday. I don't know how you guys have been going. I didn't expect to feel so sad about um, King, King of Beasts, because I went kind of through the grieving process when that book ended. And this felt like a different era or something. I don't know, but I was like super missing Wrath yesterday.
Oh,
It was really weird. I was listening to the playlist for both books. So I have one playlist where I took all of the songs that I kind of did on repeat for either certain characters or certain sort of phases in the story, put them all in one Spotify playlist, and I was listening to it all day yesterday while I was preparing stuff. And I was literally near tears like a lot of the time, which was strange. I was not expecting that. It took me completely by surprise. Anyway, so I'm glad you're here because I'm excited to be here, but also kind of sad.
well, if it
Um,
makes you feel any better, I cried too.
thank you. I can always rely on Janelle to refresh my reader tears. Um, pretty much every day. I'm very touched. Okay, so the way this is going to work today, just so you guys know, right now we're going to do. I got all the questions that everybody submitted ahead of time. I thought that would be faster because there's a lot and it's really cool questions too, so I'm excited about it. But basically, what I'm going to do is here on Discord, we're going to go through the questions that relate to King of Beasts and the original characters, or at least there's some that's kind of crossover. So here over the next hour, we're going to go over the stuff that's kind of earlier in the story or the world building and stuff like that. And then when we go over to Facebook, in an hour, I'm going to do the Queen content or the stuff that's after the questions that relate to sort of after King finished or um, after Queen finished. And I don't know how we're going to go for time. So I'm doing two different things. I've got some giveaways that you guys are eligible for just for being here in the Discord one. But what I'm doing, because I have a whole bunch of kind of merchandise and cool little things and notes and cards and different stuff that's all from both King and Queen. So what I'm going to do is kind of mystery packs because all of you have different things that, some people got stuff from King and some people didn't. And some of you have certain items and don't have others. So, what I'm going to do is, if or when you win a prize at either of the lives today, I'm going to talk to you afterwards and find out what you've already got. So, I can make sure that whatever I'm sending you is something you haven't received yet. Hopefully. Please, Lord, please. And so there's going to be opportunities to win here and then also in the Facebook. So if you come to both, even if you win something here, you can also win something over there. I'm just letting you know. But you're not going to know what you're getting until it arrives at your house. It's going to be a little present from me. Um, And if you are coming over to Facebook and you're not part of the reader group, so not just on my profile, the live is going to be on my profile because that reaches the highest number of people. But the activities, the free content, I have some exclusive content for you that is not published anywhere else. And that's going to go on the reader group this afternoon while we're there. So if you're not in the reader group, let me know and I will send you the link so you can come join over there because that's how you're going to get access to the cool stuff. Anyway, that's all of our housekeeping for now. Oh, Nick's can't hear. Trying to think next. It's probably a setting
I
on.
got it.
Oh, you
I
got
figured
it?
it out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know what was wrong, but it wasn't working, so I went and got headphones and now it works. So I
Oh,
don't know what's
cool.
wrong.
Okay.
It's a me thing.
Oh, no, it's not. Like, seriously. I used to think that I was good at technology. For goodness sake, before last year, my job was in technology in terms of using technology. I did video content and social media stuff for my church, and I did like editing and all kinds of stuff. And I've never had an issue with like software and stuff. But for whatever reason this year, I'm like, am I getting old all of the sudden? I feel like I just have nothing but problems with technology and I can't figure anything out. So it's not just you. Anyway, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to encourage you guys, especially since there's only a few of us here. If you have like a follow on question from these, because I collected all of the questions that everybody asked me. Some people send them in private messages, some people put them on my post on Facebook. There's several different things. So, if you have a follow-on question or something that I bring up that you want more information about, please feel free to jump in and like interrupt me. I'm going to try and kind of plow through stuff because there's a lot of questions and I want to get all of this out to everybody. But I'm totally okay if if I don't cover something and you want to know more, like please, because this is the funnest part for me is all this talk about all this stuff that I haven't gotten to talk about before because you guys haven't known what was going on. So I'm excited. So please do just jump in. If we don't get through everything here, we'll just take it over to Facebook and we'll do it there. In fact, at some point, I think we're going to end up doing both at the same time, but we'll see. Me and technology, as I say, have not been getting along very well lately. Okay, so the questions that I have here and now, we're going to talk mainly about King or the King of Beasts or the things that kind of relate to previous to the beginning of Queen. And the first question was just the first set of questions is kind of about the world or the writing of the world. Janelle asked me if since I had never written shifters or werewolves before, what inspired this world and having the different kinds of shifters in the story. And some of you have probably heard at least some of this before, but what happened in terms of King? I had before King, which started in February of 2021, I had never written fantasy before, not real fantasy. I'd written magical realism, which is where you take the real world and you kind of add something supernatural or magical to it. But I had never written fantasy and honestly didn't think that I was up to the task. That's the truth. Because writing fantasy is a lot more complex in world building, and I didn't feel confident in my ability to do that. But what happened was this opportunity came up on Web Novel where they were going to promote stories, just a little promotion, but it was going to be for like literally brand new stories. So the editors were each told to find sort of 4 or 5 authors to bring a new story to Web Novel. But it was in February and Spirity wasn't starting until April. And so the editors had to kind of pick authors and say, hey, you can't do a Spirity book because that won't start until April. But if you have another book you want to try, we'll promote it for the first few days. And basically, they were going to get readers to vote by adding the book to their library as to which of these books they would like to read more of. So my editor got in touch with me and she's like, I think you should do this. And at that point, I had written a magical realism, a supernatural, and a CEO book. I was still in the middle of the CEO book when this came up, and I said, okay, and it couldn't be Prince was the book at the time that I was working on for Spirity. And I said, what do you think I should do? And she said, well, fantasy's really hot right now. Why don't you try fantasy? Because you don't have any fantasy on your list. And basically, you want to try and get readers from all the different places. And I was like, okay, because it was a low risk situation. It was like, if the book doesn't fly, if nobody's interested in it, you don't have to keep going. We're just going to try a few concepts and see what people are attracted to. And so she said, you should try fantasy. So literally, I think we had this conversation on like a Sunday night. And I had to start the book. Like I had to tell her the concept and give the synopsis and everything on like Tuesday. I remember it was like 2 days away. She's like, look, just go think about it, see what you come up with. And I came up with what to me just sounded like fun. Like I was literally like indulging myself. Okay, if I can just write anything, what do I want to write? Well, I love Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorn and Roses series, at least until the latest book in it. All the previous books I just adored. And the thing that I loved about it was the characters, the way the characters interacted, and the uniqueness of them, and the number of them, and just there was just a lot about it that I really loved. And so I was like, okay, so if I want to do something like that, you know, but not that, what am I going to do? And for me, I have to base it in something that I'm familiar with. Otherwise, it's just going to be it's going to be awful. And the thing that I love is animals. And I thought, well, what about, and this is the truth. The only werewolf book I have ever read is Twilight, if you count it, which I don't, but anyway. Or there was another YA that came out in like 2010 or something. It was called Shiver. That's the only other werewolf book I've ever read. But I loved the interaction there and the characters and the dynamic and the stuff that happened in that book. And I thought if I'm going to do something fantasy, it would be cool to use animals that I know and love because I know, on an amateurish level, I know a lot about body language and the differences between the way animals communicate and all that kind of stuff. It would be fun to kind of mix that up. So that was how it started. And so 2 days later, I pitched it to my editor and I gave her a synopsis that actually doesn't really accurately represent the conflicts in the story, but it does the job. And I had at that point come up with Reth. I knew who Reth was, and he was the center of the whole story, which I'm going to talk about later. But that was really how it started. Was just basically what am I capable of writing, and what would I get enjoyment out of? And so for me, it was really about making a world that feels real. And the only way I knew how to do that was basically to mix real world things that I actually know about. So that was how it came up. Um, then she asked, why did you choose the animal tribes you wrote about? Well, that literally, there was two aspects to that. One was that it had to either be animals that I knew well, like I knew well enough to know some of their body language, some of their sort of ways that they interact with each other. So I needed to pick animals that I could have at least a little bit of knowledge about. But then also because I knew, and this was right at the beginning before I knew where the story was really going, I needed animals that I could use sort of symbolically, I guess. It was like what represents this kind, because I knew the kind of character interactions I was going to need and the kind of conflicts I was going to need. So I was sort of trying to think up what kind of animals would fit those kinds of ongoing storytelling needs. And in the end, if I was doing this again, I would actually do fewer or slightly different tribes than the ones that I picked. Um, because at the beginning I was doing, good versus evil. I was going to have half the tribes be good and half of them be bad, and they were going to, there was going to be this war. And in the end, what I realized was they needed to be a lot more ambiguous than that, that there needed to be kind of, a thread of good or bad in each tribe, but that all tribes would have, both elements in them. So yeah, I would actually do it a little bit differently now. If I was going back to rewrite Anima, I would change some of the tribes and bring in different animals and stuff. But that was what I came up with in 2 days. Was the six tribes that we got. Um, and it was fun, honestly. I think it still worked, even though I would do things differently. I still think it worked. So I'm not, I don't lose sleep over it. Um, Melissa asked me, do the anima eat other animals, even the ones who aren't predators? And the answer is just plainly yes. Obviously, some anima, their beast forms are herbivores, so the herd animals and stuff, when they're in beast form, they don't eat meat. But as humans, or in their human form, they do. Um, and I've had a lot of questions through the course of, but especially in King, but through the course of the whole series, different people have brought up, why would these people who relate so closely to animals, why would they eat animals, or wouldn't they see that as disrespectful to use their hides and stuff like this? And I have to say that doesn't gel for me, because when I look at the animal kingdom and how animals function, to them, death and life are just part of life. So they will use whatever resource is available to them. They often won't eat their own kind, but they'll eat whatever else they have to eat to survive. And they will take, even birds and stuff, they will take things from other animals if it serves their purpose. So I don't see a dissonance between the tribes or the people in the tribes who will eat meat or use hides or use leather and stuff like that. To me, it seems completely natural that they use natural things. And they see that not as a disrespect, but just as a provision. So if but at the same time, they are more connected to animals than we are, in the sense they understand them better. So they don't, like, I thought about it and I thought, do the anima really hunt for sport? No, they don't. It's not that they go out and, like, I'm just going to kill something today. Everything that they do, hunting, fishing, all of that stuff, is all to provide, and nothing gets wasted. And I got this from my uncle, who's Filipino and grew up in the tribes. And I have a family who does hunt, and we eat the meat. It's not for the trophies; it's for the meat. But at the same time, there's a lot of the animal that we don't use. We don't have to. We don't need to. We don't have a way to. And when my uncle from the Philippines would come with us, he would be like, "Oh, so much waste," because, like, all the innards, the hooves, like everything in an animal in the Filipino tribes would be used on in some way. And to me, that was more along the lines of how the anima would work. It's not that they see it as a disrespect, but they also don't see it as it's a resource that they think that they have to honor. So they would use everything in one way or another. And they are effectively, what would you call it? I don't think it's Stone Age. Maybe it's medieval. I don't know. They're a society that has very little, if any, sort of technology or anything like that. So, bladders get cleaned and used as everything from water skins to balls. Like, they use everything. In my mind, they use everything, but they're more sophisticated, more developed maybe than, some of the earlier human societies that use those kind of resources too. Um, Mary asked me, what the heck are the voices? Why are they in the portals and how long have they been there? So, the voices are definitely, and several people have picked this up. The voices are definitely a stylized, if you want to call it that, a demonic type of entity. So they are evil, they are dark, they feed on pain and power. And they take that from humans or animals, basically any sentient being that comes in contact with them, they attempt to influence and gain power and gain access to the outside worlds through people or through anima. So they desire to hurt, but they use the things that they know. They're supernatural beings, so they use the things that they know and the influence that they're able to have to try to deceive and tempt and manipulate. So, yes, they will threaten and they will harm, but they also will try to seduce, or it depends on your personality or what drives you, right? So when the guys are all telling Elia about the voices and sort of warning her about what's going to happen, they talk about how they'll either tempt you or threaten you. And that's because, most of the time they know when they come in contact because they have supernatural access. They know what's going to draw a person, but sometimes they get it wrong. Sometimes they'll try to tempt when actually they needed to threaten, or vice versa. So they'll just do whatever they have to do. But to my mind, into the world building, they are they are an actual entity, and they are a supernatural being. but they're also kind of symbols or metaphors in a way of the I don't want to say the evil inside us, but the self-destructive nature that we can have. And some people just are evil. Um, to me, the things that the voices say and the ways that they try to influence people, um, those are based into my mind, real experience. Like, and I've had readers contact me and say, these voices, they're in my they're in my head, kind of thing. And that was the idea. It's like, let's bring our narrative out and look at it for what it really is. Because a lot of times when we're in our own heads and we're just thinking things that are self-loathing or thinking things that are self-destructive, we can't really see it for what it is. We think it's real, we think it's true, or we think it's necessary. And I think taking that outside of a person and having it thrown at them by something else can make us kind of see it more clearly. So that was the point of them. Like, that was the idea behind what they do, was to confront the characters essentially with the worst of themselves, or the weakest part of themselves. Um, they are the voices are, in terms of, because one of the things Mary asked was, what are they? Um, they are I, they are supernatural. So I don't want to say that they were, kind of put there for the anima. No, the voices in the Traverse existed before the anima did. So they've always been there in terms of anima history. They've always been there. Um, and they are a combination of a test and I don't know how to, it's kind of a spiritual concept of that I believe you don't see the best of humanity in anyone until they are pushed to their limit. And that's when you see where people really are at. When you get a person who is either threatened or pressed to the edge of their capacity in any way, that's when you get to see their metal, what they're really made of, and where their morals are, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses, like, that's where you see them. So the idea was that the voices are there to push people to that place, but the goal is that people overcome. So the goal is people draw on good and right and light from God rather than giving in, right? Because you see that when they give in, it destroys them over time. Um, but they are stuck in the Traverse unless they can convince somebody to take them out, which is what they're always trying to do in whatever form. They're always trying to get people to take them out so that they can infect others as well. That's their goal, the power that they're after. Oh, Sravanthi asked me. I didn't see that. I'm sorry, Sravanthi. I had the screen on the wrong place. She asked me what tribes I would have used. I would have not had the goats and sheep at all. I would have brought in probably either pigs or boars. Excuse me, either boars or bulls, pigs or cows, because I know them better. And I feel like there would have been a lot more fun characterization that I could have done with different herd animals. And I probably would have brought in a few more exotic animals as well, just to make the distinctions more interesting between tribes. But that's all pie in the sky stuff now. It's not going to happen. Um, what are your top three favorite characters overall in Anima and why? Gosh, I love that question. Okay. So, number one is super easy. It's Reth. He is and always has been my favorite. And in many ways, he's my favorite character ever. Um, Not for writing him. I think my best writing is with Aelith and Forbidden Prince. But Reth is like He's my heart. I don't know how else to say it. I just love him. I love how he approaches the world. I love how he thinks and feels about other people. I just love everything about him. So he gets to be number one, not only in Anima, but pretty much everywhere, honestly. But he is very closely followed by Gar. And Gar snuck up on me. Like I knew I was bringing him into Queen, but I didn't plan for him to play as big of a role as he did, at least not at the beginning. And the thing that surprised me, because I thought in my heart and mind that Gar would always play second fiddle to Reth. I always assumed that Reth would be my guy, and Gar would be just his kid. But what I realized in writing Gar is that I actually relate to Gar a lot more than I relate to Reth. Reth is like the best part of my understanding of life and wisdom. But Gar is like me in the sense of this sort of, I don't want to say tormented because he's not, but he was troubled, um, angsty. He's got a lot more angst than Reth has. And part of that's because he's young. But a lot of that has to do with he just had different pressures and he's a different personality. But he really is. When I now get, or, in the last few months while I was finishing Queen, my favorite scenes to write were always Gar's scenes, every time. Um, and a similar thing happened with Laren when I was writing King, which is why my third pick is kind of a not pick. It's Laren and Suli, both of them, because it's really hard for me to separate those two. If I could only write one of them, it would be Laren. I love him, and I love because I get to be in his head. So I understand the difference between the things that he values and the way that he deals with stuff. And you guys didn't really get to see, because that's the way it's supposed to be. At the beginning, he looks like a villain, because the way he's reacting to things is wrong and bad and destructive. But I knew where it was coming from. I knew what it was born out of. And I knew that it wasn't his default position. I knew that it was these circumstances that had brought him to that place. And that under different circumstances, he would not hurt people the way he did. And I also knew that he wasn't fully understanding. He was in part a little bit naive and in part a little bit in denial, sort of blinded by his rage. He was not fully comprehending what impact he was having on people's lives and the wolves in general. So I love him, and I love the complexity of him, and I love that. I mean, it was such a challenge. He's the first time I've ever tried to redeem a villain, and I love that it worked because I love those stories. Like as a reader, I love to read those stories. Um, just as I don't know if any of you have read the Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafi. But she's got she's got a wide variety of characters, really complex characters, and she's got characters that not just the primary characters but the secondary characters as well. They really develop over the course of the series. And my thoughts always go back to her when I'm thinking about how to move a character from one place to the next. Her and Katja Malay's what's it called? The oh shoot, I can't. Anyway. There's an author named Katja Malay. She's only written one book, and it's incredible. And it was the first time I ever read a book, and I wished all the side characters had their own stories. And it became my goal to write like that, where you got to know and love the secondary characters just as much as you did the primary characters. So those guys influenced me a lot. And so Laren and Suli, they're like, I don't want to say they're opposites because they're not. Suli is the person I wish I was, and I'm not. But I love her. I admire her a great deal, and I love her heart. Um, so that's why I say it's really hard to sort of toss up between her and Laren because I love them for different reasons, and they're so intertwined with each other. If I could only pick one, it would be Laren. But Suli's really in there for me because I just love who she is and how she deals with the world. Um, where the heck were the bars and gar? I'm gonna answer that one in a little while. Samantha, because that is in the questions here. Um, I'm sorry. Some of these questions I forgot to write down who asked them, so I'm sorry if this is your question. I apologize. Did Reth and Elia ever get in trouble when Reth was in the human world when they were kids? I'm going to say not exactly. So imagine Reth as a child, right? He's a child. He's 10 years old. He's the son of the king. He's in human terms a little bit more mature and a little bit more developed than the average, human 10-year-old. He's probably closer to about 14. So he's got himself together better than his peers when he arrives in the human world, but he's been ripped out of his natural world and culture and his position, right? In the human world, he is nothing. He's just a kid. In Anima, he's an important kid and he belongs to extremely important people. And I know, knowing Reth and knowing his personality and knowing where he came from and also the trauma of being taken away from his family and his world, all of that made him a little bit more reactive and a little bit more aggressive. He was also entering a stage of life where the anima, especially for males, it gets very erratic in their emotions because they're physically growing into themselves and they're hitting puberty and stuff between sort of 10 and 12. So for Reth, this was a stage of life that was already going to be a little bit difficult. And now he's thrown into this whole new world and he is unimportant, but he's not unimportant. The people that he lives with, they know who he is and they treat him as the son of the king, as the future king. But nobody else around him knows that. So his instinct, his natural instinct in functioning in life is to be very bold. He would tell adults what to do without even thinking about it. Like it just wouldn't even occur to him not to. He wasn't being disrespectful in his own mind. He was just, this is life. This is what you don't know what to do there. You should do this. So he was seen as, by some as a spoiled brat, by others as dangerous because he's a big kid. He's strong. He's much bigger than his peers. He's aggressive with it at times. And that's intimidating to adults when you have a kid who's like that, and especially when you don't know where they're coming from. He's new, nobody understands him. So, in the sense of getting in trouble, what it was Reth's way of functioning in the world got him in trouble because the adults around him didn't understand who or what he was and why he acted the way he did. Elia got him right from the beginning. She understood that he had a good heart and that when he did these things that it was more of a misunderstanding than an intentional sort of rebellion or whatever. So she was forever sticking up for him, trying to sort of smooth things between him and other people and stuff like that. And she was getting negative attention because her parents, they're just looking at this brash, aggressive kid and going, our daughter is completely naive and has no idea that this kid is, trouble or a problem because they're imagining what's he going to be like in 3 or 4 years, right? They have no clue that he's here just for a short time. They're going, she's going to be friends with this kid. He's going to hit 13, 14 years old. He's going to be as big as an adult. He's going to be trouble. Like they are anticipating problems. Whereas she's seeing his heart and his gentleness because she's always gotten to see that side of him because he doesn't have to defend himself with her, right? She's his safe place. So she's always seen the best side of him. So what I think used to happen a lot for them when they were kids was that she would get discouraged from spending time with him, discouraged from sticking up for him, and that would make her mad. She was not a aggressive person. She wasn't. She was kind of a people pleaser, but she had this really fierce sense of justice, and that's what you see when she gets into Anima, right? When she sees the disformed and what they're being put through, and she's just like, no, this is not okay. Same thing happened with Reth when they were kids. She went, this isn't okay. People are not understanding him and they're not treating him right and not appreciating what he is. And so she was forever trying to stick up for him. Well, then she's getting in trouble for doing that or being told that she's naive or whatever. And then he's getting aggressive because he knows that she's being good to him and they're not treating her well for it. So it was this kind of vicious cycle. So they didn't get in trouble like pranks and stuff like that. Reth knew he kind of had to keep his head down. He did have a sense of humor, but he only kind of did that at home. What they used to do is get in a lot of conflict around him and how people saw him, and the fact that she would try to step in for him. And he was also very physically protective of her. So at times he would get into fights or different things, because he thought she might be under threat even when she wasn't, or like the situation that gets described in the book, which was legitimate, where he understood what was going on and she didn't. These older boys, they were going to be trouble, and he stepped in and helped her, whether she realized it or not at the time. So stuff like that happened to them a lot, but they weren't like, you know, playing pranks or anything like that. Um, I love this question. Amanda said, since Elia and Reth enjoyed exploring so much on their list, what was each of their favorites? I have to try and answer this without blushing. So just so you guys know, the very brief versions of the answers of these questions are going to be posted on the book on Queen, tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow or the next day. But you guys are getting the fuller version. So Elia's favorite is being outside. So anything that was on the list that had to do with being outside, she loved that, in part because it was just something that she'd always kind of wanted to do, but also because it was something they couldn't do as often. So it had that sense of the forbidden, or at least the thing that was, difficult to achieve. So anything that took them outside, really, for her, she loved being in any kind of secret space where they couldn't be seen, or preferably heard, but that was a lot harder. And that was, so for her, it was less about position and more about environment. But I did say in the answer on the question that there was one little incident in the dining table of the royal cave that she thoroughly enjoyed. And there's a reference to that, and I don't remember where it is. I think it might be later in the book, where she says to him, "Hey, I've had this idea for the list." Anyway, that was something that they did later, and that she had a lot of fun with that. It's one of her favorite memories. For Reth, he honestly, and I'm not just saying this, he really does love it all. Like, for him, the journey is the point, right? It's just fun. It's fun being with her. It's fun thinking up new things or new places or whatever. Like, he just finds the whole thing just a hoot, and he loves it. But I did say, if he was choosing in terms of his memories or, you know, anything like that, his big thing is being able to see her. So anything that gives him a view of her, which is why, especially in the latter half of the story, you see a lot of times he'll have her on top or he'll take from behind and stuff like that. And it's because he loves to watch her, and he loves to have her in a position where he can watch things jiggle or whatever. Like, that's his thing. He's very visual. And it helps being Anima because his eyesight's really good, so he can see in the dark and stuff too. But yeah, for him, again, it's less about this sort of specific thing and more about finding places where, or ways that they can engage that give him a visual feast, if you will. Okay. Did anybody have any other questions about any of that stuff? You can talk, by the way. You don't have to keep yourselves muted if you don't want to. I am running right on time, which is really cool, because that never happens. Okay, so what I wanted to do, if we had time, which we do, in terms of a giveaway, I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. I have two games, and one of them is going to be a lot easier to do, I think, with Facebook because a lot of people that are on there haven't read or had as much engagement with me and stuff, so they don't know as much about the stories. Um, so when I originally planned a game for today, it was a quote game. It's called Who Said It? And I'm gonna tell you things that people said, um, and you got to try and figure out who said it. Bonus points if you know when, but I'm not gonna hold you to that. Um, but I wanted to tell you, I realized doing these games that I can be clever and I can be funny and like take quotes out that one character said that, would naturally sound like somebody else said it and stuff like that. But also there's a lot of the same things. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I remember less of quotes and more of sort of scenes or events. And so I don't feel like this game is super exciting when I finally got it sort of all put together. So I am going to go through the quotes with you, and I'm going to give you guys a chance to see if you can tell me who said them. But what I'm just going to do in terms of the giveaway is just say to you guys, okay, you're here, like you're in the draw. Because the other thing was there's no way to kind of put this to you and not have somebody like Janelle who's read King 4 times. I'm like, you're going to know things that other people don't know. And the same is true when we get over to Facebook with we're going to do two truths and a lie for all the main characters over there. So Janelle, I'm going to ask you when we do that not to jump in early because I think you're going to get most of them.
Probably will.
So, and maybe with this one too, if anybody's struggling and you know it, like maybe just hold back for a minute and see, or any of you who are rereaders, because I think some of you will pick these pretty quick, and other ones you'll be like, well, that could be any one of 3 characters. But I just thought it would be fun because it's kind of a walk down memory lane a little bit. Anyway, so you guys can have, as long as you don't have background noise in your room, I don't care if you have your mics on, if you want to jump in and tell me who you think said it. But the first one is just a gimme for everybody, and I know you all know it. Who says alpha male bullshit?
Amora?
Anyway, I actually literally put every female in Anima ever.
Right? But Amora said it first.
Yes. Amora coins it in the book. It's actually already kind of a saying because she's so influential in the people. I don't know if she's the first person ever to have said it, but she kind of carries the flag for it in Anima. So yeah, in the book, she is the first person to say it. What about, and these, by the way, they can be king or queen. And I'm not going to tell you which book it's from unless you guys really can't get it, and then I'll give you that clue. Your alpha will lead you into the promise of truth and light. Anyone?
Was that Laren?
Yes.
Oh.
Laren actually says that in a speech to the wolves when they're out in the encampment, I think.
That's what I was thinking.
It's in chapter 429. And I think it's when he knows that he's going to lead them back to Wildwood. He's going to lead them back to Reth, but he hasn't told them that yet. So he's kind of doing the big hurrah, follow me. But he knows where he's going. I think it's that stage of the story. So, what about if you would speak to me, speak plainly and show yourself. I will not give an audience to cowards hanging behind a crowd.
Oh.
No one? You know this one, Janelle. I know you do.
Reth?
Yes. That's actually right at the beginning.
Yeah, okay.
That's where it's right after the rite when he's declared Elia his mate. And they're all getting a little bit aggravated about it. And they're
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
murmuring and saying things to each other. And he's like, if you're going to talk, talk to me. Let's not, you know. Um, what about real anima, my puckered ass?
Oh my gosh.
It's it said real anima, my puckered ass
Um,
of that ilk. Anyone?
oh my gosh.
It's Gar, and it's
I was
when it's when
okay.
he is at the rite of veneration.
Right,
When
okay.
the birds, I think it's the birds, have made the challenge that the disformed aren't real anima, and he gives them this big spiel
Okay, yeah, I
about
was thinking it was in Queen, but I couldn't remember.
yeah. So that's when he gives them the big spiel, and then he like physically defeats the bird, and he's like, "Real anima, my puckered ass." Like he's just like, "You think you're real anima?" Anyway, be interesting to see if anybody gets this one. I'm sorry I've been blind. How long have you felt the bond?
Laren said that.
No.
Oh.
He,
Wasn't that
Rika?
Amora's mate? Wasn't that
Yes!
Amora's mate?
Oh, you're right.
Good
Okay. I thought
job. I
oh
thought
boy.
everybody was gonna think it was Elrith.
No, I was thinking it was a man, but
Yeah,
darn it.
that's Amora telling Elia about her mate and when she met him and the whole story there.
Good job. Who did that? Like who answered that?
Chelly.
Oh, nice.
No, it was Nick's. Well,
Oh,
I
sorry.
said it, unless Shelly did it too.
No,
But
sorry, my bad. Okay, what about this? The true blessing of a mate, especially a true mate, is coming to know them in ways you have not and cannot know anyone else.
Was that Charon in the
Yes!
letter? Yeah.
Man, girl,
oh,
you're like you're like an anima nerd. I thought
I
I was gonna
am.
get people with that one. Okay, Janelle's not allowed to answer any more questions.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I knew you were gonna ace this. Okay, but you're not allowed to answer this one, Janelle, because I want to see, because I think somebody else will remember this one.
Okay.
I never need you on your knees, only at my side.
Oh, I know that one too.
is that Laren?
No, but good guess. He's said
Right?
he's offered similar sentiments, I think. I'll give you a clue. This is in the first volume.
Can I say it?
Yes, you can.
It was Elia.
Yes. This is when she offers herself to Reth at the feast. And he
Mhm.
says something about even though I can't he says to her, I can't show you what I really feel right now because we're in public. But he's like, you need to know that, like, I'm on my knees in front of you. Like, he's basically debasing himself because he's so in love with her. And she says, I never need you on your knees, only at my side. All I did was open a door. It was Elrith who did the fancy dismount.
Oh wow.
Really? I thought everybody would get that one. It's from Queen. All I did was open a
That was
door.
Gar.
It was Elrith who did the fancy dismount. What was that?
Was that Gar?
Yes. I tell
Okay.
you
Yeah.
what, Gar is eminently quotable.
Wait, did I?
When I was going through different things, like different scenes, because that's what I ended up having to do, I had to go look at what are some favorite scenes to see if anybody said anything funny or clever. Gar's like got a mouth on him.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah, I love her.
okay, what about this one? You are objectively hot, like smoking.
Oh, I know that one too.
Show off.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Is
Anybody?
that Rika?
No, it's not.
Is it Rika?
It is Rika. She says that too. Gar after I think it's after the rite of veneration actually. When they're together. Yeah. Yeah, it's later on when she's starting to feel the bond and stuff. And she's
Yeah,
basically
because she
going,
saw him naked.
yeah. She's like, "Why are you interested in me? 'Cause you're smoking." Okay, the last one. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I thank the creator that you're mine.
I feel like that could be anybody.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be.
Aaron?
Who is it most likely to be?
Aaron?
No.
I'd say Brad.
Yeah, Wrath. I
Yes.
was
Yeah,
gonna say
Wrath would
Wrath.
be the next guess.
Yes, it was Reth. My sweetheart. I miss him.
My first inclination was Wrath, but I wasn't 100% sure because
Well,
others could say that too.
yes. And that is the difficulty, which was another reason why I decided not to do this game as the main game. Because there was a lot of things that I pulled out that I could have, like, you honestly, it would have fit like three different characters. And I thought, well, that's not really fair or fun because they, these guys, I don't know if it's a flaw in my writing or if it's just limited ways to say things. But I realize all these heroes say roughly the same things in different flowery words to their loves. Anyway, so I'm just gonna make a note of all your names here so that you can go in the draw, and I'll announce these on the Facebook and the Discord announcements so that you know if you won, and then I'll get in touch with you and figure out what you've already got next, Rachel. So, in just a second, I'm going to have to go over to Facebook. And the reason I wanted to split this was because we just have so many different people who aren't here in the Discord that wanted to be involved or want to be able to see it later. And doing a live is a lot easier, but you're not going to be able to talk with me. You're going to have to comment, which I don't like about the Facebook Live. So, did anybody have any questions or anything that you wanted to ask me here before we head over there?
You have
The
the.
last one, oh,
Sorry.
sorry. No, I was going to say, um, did you end up talking about how the births went with Gar and for Suli?
Those are questions that are going to get answered in the
Like
next
Facebook? Okay.
chat over at Facebook. So if you're not going to be on Facebook, I am going to try to download the live and put it up on YouTube. I haven't done that before, so I'm just making a disclaimer. I'm going to do my best. I believe that I can do that pretty easily. But yeah, so if you're not on Facebook, is anybody here not on Facebook and wants to come over to Facebook? Because I can give you the link. Okay, cool. Did you
No,
have
I'm going.
did you have another question? Somebody else spoke up as well.
I was just going to ask you pretty much the same thing if you had all the other questions you're going to answer later.
Yes.
Okay.
I knew that we had limited time here, and so I kind of ended up splitting it in a place where all of the other questions lead into Queen, even if they aren't. They're kind of that time frame, either between the books or Queen. So this was designed to be more of a focus on the stuff that happened in King. Cool. Well, I'm gonna go and I will see you guys in Facebook in about 2 minutes. So if you do have any trouble, I'll leave my notifications on here. And if you have any trouble getting over there or anything, just ping me here, and um, then I'll get you in there. However, we need to do that. Okay.
Cool.
Thanks for showing up,
Awesome.
ladies. And I'll
Thanks,
see
Amy.
you in a few
Thank
minutes.
you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
I don't think you guys can hear me yet, but if you can, I'm just waiting for a second because my device is saying it's still getting online. And I'm going to start. If you aren't already, do jump in and join my author group, the reader group. Um, it's called Author Amy's Tribe, and when we get up and running here, and I've got, if you look in the description, there's a link in there, and I'll put it in the comments too once we're going.